Welcome to Desi Return Diaries, Embracing Home Again, the podcast that shares personal journeys and expert insights on returning to India. I'm your host, Avinash Pedi, here to guide and inspire you on your Desi return journey. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Desi Return Podcast. I am very excited with our guest today, Puspam, who has lived in US for 7 years before moving back to India. He did a PhD in US and working in a biotech, which brings a different perspective from a professional background in terms of motivation, career transition, and so on. So I'm really excited to have him on the show and welcome Pushpam to the podcast.
Thanks, Avinash, for having me.
Great. So why don't we start with a bit of your background, your education, professional background, and what made you to move back to India. So I think that would help, like, just set the stage for our audience.
Yeah, I'd be happy to share that. So, I have done my BSc from Jadavpur University, Kolkata, in chemistry. And from there onwards, actually, I moved to ISC Bangalore, where I did my master's, also in the chemistry department. So, when I was doing my master's, I felt that I want to pursue PhD. And for that, I was thinking of doing it in different European countries or in the US. So, I got an opportunity in UMass Amherst in Massachusetts. So there, I got a PhD degree in chemistry. So even though our department was chemistry department, we were focusing mainly on at least our lab was focusing on biochemistry. We worked on different DNA-based probes, and with the help of those probes, actually, we tried understanding cell-cell signaling pathways. So that's a bit of background about my PhD. So after the PhD, what I wanted to do is work in the industry, uh, especially in Massachusetts, around Boston. There are so many startups and companies focused on biotech. So that was a sweet spot for me also. I went there for a scientist position in a company called Laron Bio, where we were majorly focusing on RNA-based therapeutics. Right now, the field is exploding with the help of vaccines and everything like people are doing with RNA. So I worked there for 1.5 years, but this thought was there with me till like every time when I was there in US all the time that I want to move back to India. So I thought I should be starting applying for different companies in India. I did quite a few applications, and I was glad to get an offer from the current company where I'm working in Bangalore. The company name is Biocon Bristol Myers Squibb Research and Development Center. So here I am also focusing on different drugs and screening and bioassays. So when you are saying like what was my motivation, I think my motivation was always to be close to the family members. I think I went to US for getting a degree, and that was a great part of it, and I learned great things from US, in terms of work culture and everything. But at the same time, I wanted to stay in close proximity with my family members, and somewhere down the heart also felt that I can contribute towards India's, development and maybe patriotic, but not. Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. I think it's always great to hear from people who wants to, learn and come back to India and then contribute to the development journey, right? I mean, it's always amazing so that the talent is not going from here to help the countries in US versus, kind of building in India, for example. That's great. I think you touched upon an important point, which is a very common question among people who are living abroad and who wants to move back to India, especially finding a job. What are the good portals to go and search for, or would it always? I mean, do you have any tips or any suggestions that you can give uh, for the people who are in abroad and then looking for a career transition to India? Maybe some of the things that I have heard. For example, like having an Indian mobile number, or how serious are they to move, or the portals. I would love to hear your journey, as well as any insights or thoughts that you can give, especially coming from a biotech, which is even much more as a niche area in India compared to like an IT. So would love to get a little bit more double click into that and get a little bit more details into that.
Yeah, I think that's a very important thing when we are considering, to move to India. Especially if someone spends 20 or 30 years in US, they have enough bank balance to move in India and not to think about work. But in our case, we had to think about it, and especially in biotech, as you mentioned, IT is, I think it is much easier compared to biotech. So one of the things I would say that you pointed out is an Indian phone number that helps certainly, but even with a US phone number, it works. Uh, and I would also suggest that the people who are thinking about doing this transition, especially in biotech, I think there are different websites like Naukri, and I think there are some more, but they are not too helpful because the skill set requirements are very different when it comes to people who are coming from US. And also, what I have heard from different HRs and people in our field is the salary expectation is also very different from people who are actually getting a job in India after doing a PhD compared to someone who did PhD in US and then moves to India. So that's also something very different. So that expectation sometimes kills it. That like eagerness to move, but at the same time, I think it has to be, there has to be a match in like balance, perfect balance, I would say. I mean, there's nothing perfect, but at least there should be a balance. So that's one thing, and I would suggest that if someone is eager to move to India, especially in biotech, they should start building network. That is something which is very helpful, because in many cases, like what happens, there's not a proper job listing in the website, but on the other side, like there's a job actually in the company, but it's not listed. So only if you know someone in the company, they might forward you. Actually, they would, most of the people whom I got actually connected with, they forwarded my resume to HR. It's a different thing that whether you are getting selected or not, but at least the resume is reaching to the right people. That is very important. So I think there are different platforms which can be helpful for me. I was very fortunate to be part of PG talk show where I was a guest, and I was a host, and actually I was reaching to different people in India who are in biotech. So they were providing me nice feedback about what's happening, and at the same time, they were also guiding me through my applications. I mean, not applications really, but at least giving me the guidance that, hey, this is what should be done, and you should go in this direction. So reach out to people. That would
So
be
I think
one.
that takeaway is maybe directly applying the portals might not be the best route. Uh, Expand your network, reaching out to the people who have the experience, because some of these job postings are not even listed on the website or any of these portals. But having that forwarded by the person within the company would play a big role in getting the resume attention from the hiring manager or from the team. So I think that's good. I think it's the key thing is to expand your network and reach out to your potential employers or the things that you can think of, and try to get to know them and see how you can work together and find them. That's
Yes.
great. So I know you mentioned that you always have in your mind to move back to India. So uh, after, like, I don't know, like, is it something that you planned immediately after your PhD, or like, for how many months or years have you planned about returning it back to India? So once you made a decision, okay, I'm moving in 2023 January, or a certain date, and then you kind of backdating, like, so there was a decision that was made, like, within a year or few months. So maybe you can talk a little bit about for how long you planned, I mean, plan in the sense like once you made a decision, and how was that journey of relocating back?
Yeah, I would be happy to share my plans. Actually, I would say there was plan, but not very definitive that this is the end date. There are different reasons for that. For like after PhD, I also thought of moving back, but that time I didn't get any job opportunity, which is obviously very key point, right? So after that, I was in F1 visa, but I got selected in H1B. So I had the luxury of staying in US for a long time. But then, what happens is sometimes when you are in this situation, what you have to think is whether you want to stay there or you want to plan ahead. So I was just thinking of planning, because always I heard from people who have moved back that it takes 1 or 2 years to plan properly and then do the transition. So I think, like in my case, I was very lucky. It didn't take 1 year. It was almost like 8 months or 9 months. But also, it was not a very serious plan, like, okay, this is the last date, I should move before that, because there was no visa restriction or nothing like that. So I was very flexible that if I get a good opportunity where I can do good science and also stay close to the family members, get enough, I mean, decent salary, then that would be a good combination for me just to move ahead. And that was my thought process, and I kept it very open, the timeline. I initially thought that I'll be leaving like up to like 2025 or something. Then I was like, no, let's try, because it takes a lot of time. What if it takes time? So I would say I was lucky to be there within like 8 or 9 months, actually. I think less than that. So yeah, that's what I did. And as I said, like connecting and networking with people helped me to do that.
Got it. Cool. In terms of shipping things, I don't know if it was a simple move. Maybe anything that you can share in terms of the actual logistics, right? In terms of once you made a decision and you found the job, now it's more of some logistic steps. Anything that you can share, like anything that you want to provide any insights to the audience here.
Yeah. So I think in terms of logistics, obviously there was moving of a lot of stuff, and I did it with universal relocations. So they helped me, and I think they are really good in terms of moving stuffs. And actually, we didn't have to do anything. We just got a quote from them, and then after accepting and everything, we planned the date, and they came and they just took everything, packed everything. So nothing was done from our side except handing over the documents which are needed, obviously, for customs purposes to them. That's it.
Great. So how has the transition been going on in terms on the career side as well as on the family side, adjusting in the social network as well as on the career side?
I think in terms of family side, I'm very happy, frankly speaking, that I made this transition, because I'm right now in Bangalore. My sister lives in Bangalore. My wife's brother also lives in Bangalore. So it's very close knit network of family around, and very close to my parents also, even though they are not right now staying with us, but at least it's lesser distance than compared to US. So that's very actually peaceful, because I think I always had that feeling that parents are so far. What if something happens, like that? I wouldn't say negativity, but that like fear was always there. So I am in a good at least in mental space, that I'm always there around them, and I can take care of them.
Yeah,
So that's actually good. But in terms of work, I would say that I'm also happy, because I mean, the current work which I'm doing is also research and discovery, which is what I wanted when I was looking to transition to India, because it's very difficult to get these research and development opportunities in India. As you said, it's very niche field, right? So only few companies, a few cluster of companies work on those domains. So the science part is really exciting, and that is the thing which keeps us going, right? Like whatever you are doing in your field, if you like that, then you keep doing that.
cool. And I think in terms of the work culture, which you touched a little bit earlier, to understand the work culture in US, you worked there for a couple of years in a startup environment. BMS is a bigger organization. Again, it could be a different in terms of the work culture. Just curious, based on your experience so far, uh, your expectation of what the work culture could be in India to what you have experienced so far.
Yeah, I think in terms of work culture, I would say that obviously US is very different in terms of work culture in any field, biotech or IT. But I would also say that I mean, we all are part of different projects, right? Sometimes the deadlines are harsh, which is the case. It was the case in US also. some deadlines are harsh. We have to present the data in a meeting, so we have to run the experiments. But sometimes there's that luxury that, hey, if the experiment fails, you have a couple of more days to do it again. So I have been part of all these kind of things in the startup, because startup can be also very challenging. There can be a different requirement in terms of data. So I think here also it's very similar. Some projects where I feel like, okay, I have the timeline to complete it. Sometimes it's time bound, but at the same time, I would say that it's only been 4 weeks for me to join this organization. So only I think, but at the moment, I think it's great place to work.
That's great. It's any surprises, right? I think in the sense, you were expecting in India, whether it's a cost of living or whether it's a social life or any other aspects that kind of surprised you after the relocation.
I think, yeah, in terms of cost of living, I mean, I thought Bangalore would be expensive, but still, like, I didn't think it would be that much. But the good thing is, like, even if the cost of living is high here, you have the luxury of, like, for example, having a maid here. I mean, I understand that that adds the expenses, but in US, you can't even think about it. I mean, I don't think even like yeah, I don't think that's even possible. Or I know many people who own 3 4 houses in US, they didn't have maid. So all the things they used to do. So I think cost of living is something I thought would be less, but it's high. And the second surprise was like how like UPI is just ruling everything. I didn't think it would be to this extent. So this was also a very big surprise for me.
Yeah, cool. What are the things that you like in US or anything that you miss after moving here?
I think one thing I miss a lot is driving there.
Oh,
Like yes, we used to go to like long trips in long weekends, and also like roaming around, like 2 hour journey here and there, a day journey, come back again. So that was very peaceful. I mean, right now I haven't started driving here in Bangalore, but I certainly can assure that it would be very difficult. Yeah, what I see in the traffic, it's very different and difficult. Obviously, I don't know how to manage it.
yeah, cool. Is there any uh, advice or anything that you would suggest for somebody who is considering about moving back to India? Anything that you want to bring up that we haven't touched that would definitely help them or guide them?
I think in terms of moving back to India, one of my friend who actually moved 2 years back, I mean almost, yeah, one and a half year back. So she mentioned me one thing that when we think of moving back to India, it's more of a mental transition rather than a physical transition. Physical transition is nothing. You just pack your stuff or do it via universal relocation, some other relocation, and do the moving. But mentally deciding that I want to move back, that's very challenging. And I think one thing can help is rationally thinking what the priorities of life are, because that's the ultimate thing which decides. If for some reason you think like I want to move back in India in next few months suddenly, then maybe that's a rash decision. Think about it logically, rationally, point out that these are the pros, these are the cons, and this is what I should be doing to move back to India. And in that way, actually, you'll have a much more peaceful transition and also peaceful life in India. Otherwise, you might hate India after a couple of years, and you'll be thinking that why did I move? Not I mean, you can still go back, because I see that in RTI group many are green card holders, so they can still go back. But I would say that if someone like me who wants to move to India and have less of those green card things, so maybe they can think rationally.
Yeah, it's always good to do a rational thinking than an emotional decision, especially for
Yes,
such a big move. Yeah,
I agree, I totally agree.
yeah, that's great. So before we jump on to the rapid four, is there any topic or anything that you want to bring up that we haven't discussed?
I think we basically discussed almost everything. Yeah, I think we basically discussed everything. thanks for arranging all the questions. I think those are really good questions.
Oh yeah. So thank you for being open to share your story, which could help. Even if it helps one or two people, it still does the purpose. I mean, I still believe there are stories that people can correlate to, and that's the reason I think we are having this podcast. So people see the other people's journey, and that motivates them, or make them think that this is feasible also. Yeah. All right, let's jump on to the rapid four. So what's your I think the surprise thing after returning to India?
So as I said, like I think cost of living and UPI was a big surprise for me.
Cool. And what's your favorite travel destination in India?
I would love to go to Himalayas. I have been to Sikkim once, but I have never been to Himachal and Kashmir. Yeah.
Great. And your favorite Indian dish or a restaurant?
Dish dosa, no
Yeah.
doubt.
And your favorite part of living in India?
Uh, I think it's close to the family members. That's the best part.
Cool. No, once again, thank you very much, Pushpam. Really appreciate you taking the time and sharing your story with our audience. And really appreciate, and you have a great day.
Thank you so much for providing me this opportunity. And I also want to thank RTI because, like initially when I was thinking about coming to India, I felt that I am alone. But only after joining RTI, I felt like, oh, so many people are thinking like me and are feeling that they want to move back to the country. So thanks so much for the RTI community and doing this. So,
Yeah, thanks. See ya.
yeah.
Thank you all for joining us on this insightful journey of Desi Return. If you enjoyed this episode and want to explore more stories and expert advice, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Don't forget to leave a comment below with your thoughts and experiences. By the way, check out the links in the description below for our Facebook group and social media for updates and engaging discussions, as well as connecting with fellow Desi Returners. Thank you once again, and until next time, may your Desi Return journey be filled with joy, growth, and endless possibilities.